All right, let's see. Share desktop. And all right, so I just kind of built like a pretty loose framework so we can work through, and you can add basically as much or as little as you want. But it's kind of start to finish, but you can kind of focus on the sections you think are important.
Well, I mean, like mindset is very, very simple. It's like, you know, when you go into a sales call, like you actually have to have a bit of confidence, right? Because you know, tonality and conviction are byproduct from confidence. So it's like if you don't have any confidence, then your tonality is going to be off, and you're not going to be able to go into any call with any conviction, right? So it's like, look, and it always doesn't have to be. You don't have to dedicate yourself 100% to a result. So anybody that's starting a cold call or has call reluctance, it's like the first thing you got to do is kind of kill your persona as it is right now today. Because if you've never called before, you've never sold before, if you stay in your current persona or your current state of mind, you're not going to be able to move to the future at all, right? Because your past persona got you to present, but your past persona is not going to carry you to future results. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's kind of similar to how you're even selling to a client, which is what you've been doing up to this point, got you to point
So
A.
like,
But I want
for sure. So it's like, look, you know, you've gotten this far, right? But just because you've gotten this far doesn't mean that the same vehicle is going to take you to where you need to get to, right? So it's like, look, you got to kind of check your ego at the door. You got to ask questions. You know, you got to be willing to embrace and make mistakes. So you should be failing faster and be failing more often, because that's when you're going to learn, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And the biggest thing too is like, for a lot of people in the group, they feel as though they cracked the code. They don't have any clients yet. You know, they have like an amazing offer, like, oh, this is a game changer, it's revolutionary. The answer is it's not. You know, it's just not. So when people are afraid to share because they feel as though they're going to give up all their secrets, it's not the secrets that is going to get them the results, right? It's being able to position it so that they can provide some of the secrets. So whether it's your pitch deck, your offer, you know, I don't want to record my calls, I don't want to expose myself, I don't do this and that. Like, those people fall into the bucket of wanting to win at their own terms, and it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I agree.
Again, winning on your own terms is your past persona or your present persona. Do you get what I'm saying?
A lot of people, I think, worry a little bit too much about what the specifics, and then that kind of holds them back from being able to get to the next level, because you build by working on your mistakes and with a community. And if you're too private with your niche or whatever, everybody has tried your niche. It's not revolutionary. So
right. So it's like, I have experience to fall back on, but it's like people say, well, how do you develop a script? This is how I develop a script. I pick up the phone and I call like 10 or 15 people. Then I'm like, okay, I kind of see what's going on here. And these are the questions, and this is kind of the structure of the call, right? But it's like, I don't go in with like a predisposition or like, this is a script. I don't go in with like, you know, like I'm prejudging anything, or this is how I'm going to get them to a demo. I don't go in with any of that, because when you focus on all those other things, then what they're trying to do is check off all the boxes on the checklist. But what if their checklist is shit? Then it doesn't matter if you check off all the boxes, you're not going to get to any demos anyways. That makes sense?
Yeah, got it. Okay, that's really helpful for mindset. And I think it's helpful if you kind of, that with sales in particular, there's so much stuff going through your head that you don't want to have too many. You can have a few base rules that you can always fall back on that then help you make decisions on the fly, which is
helpful. Yeah, for sure.
As far as building an avatar, I posted in the group basically a bunch of questions I've used to build an avatar, and it's kind of like a combination from all these different, you know, YouTube courses and all that. So I think I'll just skip that to save time. How long do you have roughly? I'm guessing like maybe half an hour.
Probably like maybe 20 minutes.
Okay, yeah. All right. Then we'll kind of go to the most important things. So for cold calling, I guess the three most important things: getting past the gatekeeper, pitching the owner, and how to sound different. I'll add on my own gatekeeper and pitching the owner. How would you like try and frame, because everybody's tried basically your offer. There's always business owners get pitched like 3 or 4 times a day on marketing. So how would you, and how have you made yourself sound different?
By actually just having a conversation with them and asking very good questions about their business that people don't typically ask. Because it's really not about the offer, right? I mean, it is. I can't say that it totally isn't, right? But the offer is actually just going to go ahead and have them commit to a conversation, right? Especially if you're running paid ads, if you're doing cold email or something like that. But I think what is really the needle mover is like, they got to feel as though the person I'm talking to, are they competent? That's what the prospect has to understand. Are they confident? Are they competent? And can I see myself actually having conversations with this person on a bi-weekly basis, day to day? Do I feel like I'm in good hands? Do I have a peace of mind? The only way to convey that and actually grow that is by showing them through conversation that, yeah, I am the person. I am that guy. I is he, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or she is her, you know?
Yeah, got it. Okay. And you want to give just like 2 or 3 examples of questions that you would say, like the type of question that is different than most salespeople are asking? I mean, I'd say probably digging deeper into their problems as opposed to just going with their surface level responses. But I want to hear what an example from your end look like.
Well, it really depends. So typically what happens is if you're cold calling people and they go, David, I get calls like this all the time. And then let's say out of 10 people, 9 of them say that. I get calls like this all the time. So what you should be doing is you should be saying, listen, David, you should be proactive and preemptive. Listen, David, you probably get calls like this all the time. Right? So it's like, this is kind of what I do. Just give me like 20 seconds if you can. I specifically work with X to get X. Right?
Yeah.
Are you open to having a conversation how I'm able to do that on a consistent basis and allow you to have control over your business?
Got it. Okay, that's helpful and kind of.
But the thing is if they're not saying I get calls like this all the time, then if you have in your script you probably get calls like this all the time, then it has no value.
You want
to get what I'm saying?
You have to know your niche well enough to know what they're used to, and then by calling that out, they're almost like, wow, he read my mind. So then they
1000%. Because you work with landscapers, right, David? Do they all talk alike? Are they all similar?
There's a lot of similarities there, yeah.
And here's the elephant in the room. All of them think they do their business differently. They're better than the next guy.
Yeah. And I always ask that question. I always like, the responses are pretty similar. And I started to kind of be able to build out a better script because through so many sales calls, I've gotten to know them better. And that's one struggle I faced in closing. I think I closed for other agencies on the side of my agency. And
what other agencies have you worked on? What other offers or niches?
Yeah, I worked with solar. I've worked with kitchen installation. I've worked with Kairos. And I'll check my list of who I'm currently closing for on my calendar. Hold on. Let me just check.
Yeah.
And someone that works with music schools. So those are the ones I'm closing for right now. And they're all different. So
yeah,
I've kind of had to learn how to adapt to the questions they normally get. And I have to do that through the person I'm closing for, if that makes sense. I kind of have to learn quickly from that, and that's been a struggle. So when you're working in your own niche, get to know your niche well is I guess what I'm trying to say.
You need to know your niche well, but not only that, but it's very simple. There's 3 things that people need to know. What is it that you do? How much does it cost? And how do they benefit? That's transferable to any niche.
Yeah.
So if you want to structure something, it has to be structured to navigating those 3 things, right? But it's like, you understand when you're talking to somebody, everybody has these minds, right? Or they have these buttons like this, cancellation button. So when you go through an effective intro, right? Basically what you're doing is you're grabbing the button and removing it before they can press it. So that's why when you can stay ahead of the curve and you have a system, it basically, you're gobbling up all those buttons before they can even press them, right? And that's how you corner people. And when you corner them, chances are at that stage, all the cats are out of the bag, all the elephants in the room were spoken about. It's just mano y mano. We're not falling into a trap of, I got to talk to my partner, I need time to think about it, all this other bullshit.
Yeah. And that, yeah, because they don't have any other avenues out. They just have to be straight up with you, and people hate being straight up. So,
well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd agree with that.
At least for the most part. There's those certain people that love being brutal.
And here's the other thing too, is you have to be able to disseminate people that have already made a decision to purchase before they got on the call. Like, you can't, that doesn't go in the same bucket. And what I mean by that is some closers forget that they're in a position because they have to close. So for example, if somebody looks at your VSL, they look at your thing, they look at whatever, maybe it's just about that time where they're like, shit, I got to invest in something. I've been trying to do this for so long just based off of referrals. It's not getting anywhere. So they're like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and book with David because his stuff is clean. He gets on the call with you. He's already bought. He just needs to know how much and how's it work. That's it. Right? That's it. But you cannot get that confused with, oh, damn, I just closed that guy. No, you didn't. You took an order.
Yeah.
There's a difference. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, got it. There's definitely a lot of difference there. And there's a spectrum of when someone gets on the call with you, how ready they are to buy. So that's good.
For sure.
And then for transitioning to the intro call, I can kind of fill that in myself, how you do that. Then for the intro call, here's what I got. Don't pitch them on the intro unless they really, as you said, it's taking an order, they really want to buy it, then you can go ahead and pitch. But if they're more skeptical, I like to, on my intro calls, just get to know them better. And then they're expecting a pitch and you don't pitch, and you just set up another call where you can then demo it. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Like, some of the trigger words and some of the keywords that you're looking through when you're walking through the intro is like, I never thought about that. Mm-hmm. That sounds interesting. That's a great point. I like how you think. How exactly would that work? Those are all buying signals. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, got it. And that's where you can potentially go into a pitch on the intro.
Correct. And then one of the traps to not fall into is generalities. Like, it's going okay, pretty good, decent.
And how would you get out of that?
You got to have them define that. What does pretty good mean? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What does okay mean?
Okay in a relationship is not actually okay.
Yeah, it's not.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful. And then for intros, you get to know them a bit, relate, then you ask questions. The main question, it can vary depending on who you're talking to, but the main questions is, what exactly do you do? And you can word these differently, but in the core? What exactly do they do? What are their biggest struggles they're facing? How much are they making?
You could put a what are their biggest struggles? You could put how long have they been struggling? And if they can you pinpoint, David, some of the things as to why those struggles are happening? Like, why have we not solved those yet?
Yeah, got it. Okay, so then these are kind of the core questions. Add, or you don't really want to miss any of these, but you can add more if you feel they would work. And then the next step is, I kind of think, can I help them? Most of the time it's yes. And then the next step, and it sounds kind of bad, but it's like cause intense pain. And this is just my selling method, is I'm like, I really help them realize just how shitty the situation they're currently in is. And then I make it so unbearable to the point where they would do just about anything to get to point B, which is where they're trying to get to. They're like, ah, shit, like I'm not going to be able to pay off my rent. Like my business is, AI systems. Like I'm worried competitors are going to outdo me, all of this different stuff. Make them scared, make them uncomfortable. And
yeah, like the repercussions are the cause of inaction, right? So, an intense, and there's some people that fall into a bucket where they don't even know if it's possible. You know what I'm saying? Like people have been struggling so long that they don't even know they're struggling. Do you know what I'm saying?
mm-hmm.
So it's like, for example, the reasons why some people are launching digital marketing agencies is because of the results that Joel has shared with his agency, or Sergio has with his, or Isaac, or whomever, right? Ty Lopez, whoever, like pick somebody. But I'm going to tell you something that is drawing more interest for people to create digital marketing agencies because they know it's possible. Do you get what I'm saying? So we don't know how bad it is because we're in the day-to-day turmoils and all this other stuff. But when we glance off to our right or left, that's what kind of keeps us moving. So they need to develop some sort of a North Star to kind of measure themselves. And sometimes we have to be the North Star for some of these prospects that we talk to. Do you know what I'm saying? Because like, look, some landscapers are making, wouldn't you agree with me, David? Like they're making like 200 grand a month, maybe even more.
Yeah.
Like how much money do you need in a lifetime? So for some of these people, they're extremely comfortable. But when people are comfortable, that's when you should panic. When you are comfortable, that's when you should panic. That's when you should worry. And sometimes by having that conversation with them, it basically brings to the surface, kind of like you mentioned, like, shit, I am comfortable.
So let's like mini role play for a second. Pretend you're me pitching to a landscaper, and I'm John, and I'm bringing in 200K revenue. I'm living, my family's easily supported. I don't feel any struggles with money. I mean, I could get more jobs. I could book out my calendar, but like, why would I want to? How would you kind of get me to start to realize? How would you start to get me to panic a little bit? What would your kind of strategy be?
David, I would use that exact same frame that you said to me. Like, look, David, it sounds like things are good. You're making 200 grand a month, right? Vacationing, doing things like that. You have a family, have kids. What really is the ultimate goal? Is it to create a legacy, to leave some of the business behind for the kids? Right? Like, what is the ultimate goal? Is it to exit? Because you and I both know to exit at maximum, you need maximum revenue, right? So walk me through, like, what's the ultimate goal? If you had a magic wand, you could say, poof, abracadabra. This is where I want to be, and this is kind of what my future plans are. What are some of those plans? So you just basically reverse engineer, right?
Mm-hmm. Got it. Got it. Okay, so that's really helpful. So as I mentioned, build separation, cause pain, position yourself as a bridge to get them out of their current situation, and then find an angle that works for you. That's just a little thing I've found that helps, is find like how they can view you. Like I'm 19 and a lot of business owners are like, oh, you're just a kid. And then I'll position myself as like a kid that understands tech. He's done programming. He's able to use AI in a way that they can't. I understand social media. They don't. I can help them. The fact that I'm young doesn't matter. And it's like, I'm
Or you could just ask a question like this. If you know the business owner, let's say, what's the average age of the business owner for landscapers that you've been speaking to?
probably like mid 30s.
Mid 30s. Okay. And how long have they had their business?
Most of them are like right after high school is when they started it.
Okay. Like after high school being what, 23?
Yeah, or like
20?
even younger even. So
Okay.
some are like 18 and they've had their landscaping business their entire life essentially.
Their entire life, right? So it's like, okay, so imagine once you were 18, if you had something like this put in place, what would it do for your business right now? Do you think you'd be at the same level that you're at now? Right. So it's not really the matter of you being 18 executing on it, but it's whether or not at the age of 18, if they had something that you currently are offering them, what would that do for their business? And here's the other thing too, is there's a gentleman, his name is Benjamin. I think he's one of the coaches for AA, but Benjamin Huang.
Yeah, he's like our age.
Yeah, he's 18. So he had, or he might be 19. He's one of the two. But anyway, he had a serious mindset issue. This is months ago, where he's like, the very first time I spoke to him, he actually lied to me in terms of his age, right? And he had a mindset issue because he's like, I don't want people to know how young I am. But I'm going to tell you something, David. Now that people know how young he is, people want to do business with him. I know it sounds counterintuitive, right? But it's like people now want to do business with him, because imagine the kid at 18 who has things dialed in right now at 18.
He has a future going forward and they want to be
Dude, yeah. So if he had a landscaping business at 18, I would pair him up with those people that are doing 150 grand a month, and they've been doing it for 12 years. Think about it, So I wouldn't put too much of the focus. Yeah, but you're just a kid. I'd say, granted, hey, caught me, cat's out of the bag, right?
Yeah.
You started your business when you were 18, right? And he goes, yeah. I say, well, imagine if you think back when you were 18, you had something like this injected into your business. How much further along would your business currently be? You're like, damn,
a lot.
12 years of doing this? Yeah, I'd be retired by now in my 30s. Be like, okay, well, let's not really get for retirement, right? I'm not going to have you retire within a year, but I can take you further along. I can shorten that window.
Yeah.
Is that the ultimate goal? Yes, it is. Okay, cool. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's like you can kill two birds with one stone sometimes.
Got it.
All right, what's the next thing?
All right. Now going on to the demo. We'll skip demo slides. I can do that myself. So obviously on the demo, you're presenting and then you're selling. How would you when you start your demo, would you reiterate the things you learned on the intro call first and then?
Correct.
Okay, so reiterate, remind them, get them back in the mindset of what they were thinking then, which is, oh, I'm not in a comfortable position right now. Remind them that if they don't change something, then their business is gonna stay the same. And then
Then I asked the question. Has anything changed since our last conversation? What I'm looking for is them like, yeah, I'd like to also add this. If they do that, it means that they've been thinking about it, which is a buying signal as well. Right?
Mhm.
So at any time, if you have a prospect that's been thinking about you after you hopped off, that's a great position to be in.
Yeah.
Because it shows several things. Number one, you were impressionable, a positive impression, right? Number two, they actually like what you had said, right? They feel validated. They feel as though you were listening. They feel as though that you might be a solution to what they're struggling with, right?
Got it. Yeah, I agree. All right. That's helpful. And then you go into the actual pitch where you first you kind of remind them what the result will be of working with you, which is getting them from point A to point B, your bridge essentially. And then from there, after, how would you remind them? And then how do you transition into more technical explanation? And how technical would you get?
So say that again. How technical?
Yeah. So once you've reiterated the first call, got them in the mindset of, oh, I need to change something, then how do you get them from there? How technical do you get in your explanation of what you do? Do you just kind of say, what I do is cover
I
this?
don't.
You don't get technical?
No, you don't want to talk above them. You want to talk at their level. And that's why, like, what I do on these demo calls or, you know, any type of intro call is I paint mental pictures, like something that anybody can relate to resonate, right? So it's like, and sometimes if it's not eliciting the response that I need, you know, in terms of them buying in or getting closure, then I rephrase it. I explain it a different way. I break it down a different way. Because I need validation from them. Like, I'm with you, Joe. Like, oh, that totally makes sense. Oh, yeah. Okay, now I get it. Because if you keep asking questions like, does that make sense? They go, yeah. But do you hear my tonality? Yeah. Meaning like, not really.
Yeah.
So when you trial close or you tie down or you do this and that, I can't be like, bleh, bleh. I can't get that because it means that I'm losing them. So I need to get them back in.
Got it. And what percentage of the call would you say you're talking about them on the demo? And what percentage would you say you're talking about yourself and what you do? And maybe that changes, but
I don't really talk about myself really all too often. You know, it's kind of like, you know, when we have these coaching calls, you know, I might bring in a story, I might mention something about me, but it's like what, 0.1% of the time. You got to lead with value. And the best way to lead with value is by asking them questions. They should be talking more than you're talking, really, you know. And the trap not to fall into is like, you can't keep reading two things on a demo deck. Number one, you have to enter into presentation mode. Otherwise, if you have a bunch of tabs open or you have a bunch of slides that they can see on the left-hand side, they're going to skip ahead. The second thing, too, is that you can't read slides verbatim. So you should know your demo deck inside and out. You almost can do variations of it. Because if you're just reading to them, nobody wants to be read to like a child.
I see that a lot. Yeah. That's definitely a good point, is to, because when you're doing a presentation for like school or something, there's speaker notes and there's the slides, and you're doing the speaker notes here.
Correct.
You're actually like you're giving them a better explanation, but they can also look at the slides for extra kind of. You're not.
And the last thing is on the demo, even though you did summarize or revisit everything at the beginning, here's where you start leveraging. Hey, David, remember when you had mentioned this? This is what we do to solve that issue. Right? So when you said that you just can't necessarily get referrals, yeah, businesses send you this and that. That's why here, David, that's where we're taking control of the business right here in this section, right? Like, this is where we're taking control of everything because the referrals are unscalable, what you mentioned, right? So now we're creating new conversations outside of that. But it's great that you're getting referrals. You know how you get more referrals is we get you more business. So one hand washes the other. Make sense? They go, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. Okay, great.
Got it. That's actually really good. Okay, good. And then I want to respect your time, so I'll just go through these last bits real quick. How do you transition from presenting to actually saying the price? Do you then say, do you first ask, does that sound like something you could use? Like, does that sound good? And then kind of pitch the price. How do you do that transition?
Well, then you would say, so, your goal is right now you're currently at 100 grand per month. The goal is to get to 200 grand. Do you see how having X, Y, and Z within your business puts you in a better position to obtain the 200 grand quicker or sooner, or by not sacrificing your time, by it not seeming like it's a grind? So I'm leveraging, whether they're having issues with time. I'm leveraging whether, the ultimate goal is this revenue wise, some of the pain. Do you get what I'm saying? So I have to find out kind of what their pain is. And I'm referencing that pain in the overall thing to get buy-in. They go, yeah, I totally see this would work. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, like this seems amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now you just move to the next step. So David, it just sounds to me, that you probably have some questions in your head, like what's the investment look like? Some of those questions. You go, yeah, perfect. Let's just move on to it. But before we do that, any questions about what we covered thus far? They go, no, I'm ready. Cool. David, are you sitting down? No, I'm just kidding. But you can't say that if rapport is good. They'll laugh. I'm telling you, if you go, hey, David, are you sitting down? They go, yeah, I'm ready. That's when rapport is good. You can tell, kind of a joke. Then you just go ahead and hit them. Here are the options. But you have to anchor on one. This is what I mean. So it's like, look, we can either do month to month, like we explained. This is kind of what this is what that is. Or the next option is, if you're looking to save money, which I think would be the better option, because you said you wanted to do things long term, whatever the case is. So this would be the best option for you. It'd be option number 2. But which of those two do you feel as though are a better fit for you? Which would you prefer? And then quiet. No matter if they say something, just let it get it all. They're trying to sell themselves. They're trying to convince themselves. So you say nothing. Say nothing until it's apparent that they're waiting for a response. If they don't say anything, you don't say anything. The first one that talks loses right now at this stage of the game.
Got it. And got it. And at this point, they've already validated the fact that they can afford it from earlier, so they can't use that. You've given them days between the intro and the demo. Now, I'll just run through that makes sense, and then you just let them talk themselves into it, and then objection handling after that.
Yep.
And I put down the most common objections I'll get, which is, I need to talk to my wife. Give me time to think about it. It's too.
But it's always acknowledge. Well, not always, but I need to talk with wife. You acknowledge. I totally get it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you always acknowledge what they put out. Like, it's no big deal. Then you isolate in some situations. Like, wife aside. I mean, that sounds kind of bad, but you'd say, okay, totally get it. You need to talk to your wife. Now you can get more granular, and it all depends on rapport. Are they open with you, whatever the case is? And say, you ask her name. I need to talk to wife. Yeah, get her name.
Mm-hmm.
And then you say, personal question. You and name have been together for a while, correct? They go, yeah, 15 years. So you got it. She's supportive. She's got your back 100%. She's all in, all team David. And he goes, yeah, totally. She helps me with some of the books and helps me with this and that. And say, got it. Then you would say what, David?
Then I would say, so if you had to if you had to guess, do you think that going forward she would agree with you on this, or is this something that you think she would?
Or you could do what you did to close. Is she there?
Or is she there? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what and I did that actually for, since I'm recording this for people that are watching. I literally, like, I think it was an hour after the call with you, I asked that specific question, and then I had a client who said the wife thing, and I said, "Is she there?" And he was like, "Yeah, she can't come right now." I was like, "I'll wait." And so then I did, and it closed. So
Yeah.
that
So
was cool.
yeah, so you would do that. You'd say, well, name pretty well. Like, what do you think she would say about it? What do you think, what would her thoughts be?
And also note on what I did for that. I pitched bringing her in as me and him working together to convince her.
For sure. Yep. So you should know at this point in time. So that's the other level that you're moving to, and be like, okay, great. So if it's somebody that's ego driven, I call the shots, I'm the man, and they don't let up, and they're just kind of like that guy, or they're that, woman, then you would say, well, what if your wife doesn't give you permission? What if she tells you no? Where does that leave us?
And then let them answer that, and they'd probably say, well, I make the decision, so I don't, like, that doesn't matter. So then that kind of, they just canceled their own objection. Depends on
Yeah, but you're doing kind of like a temp check, and you're trying to feel them out, right? But if they're like, yeah, if she tells me no, I'm gonna say, where does that leave us? And well, fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyways, and say, listen, David, I love your style. Why don't we do this? Why don't we just go ahead and move forward with it? You can have a conversation with name. Matter of fact, why don't we do this? Why don't all three of us get on the call? Right? Because it sounds to me, David, you already expressed like, look, you want to do it anyways. You're in, even if Kathy says no. So why don't we just get on the call? Because I'm sure Kathy's going to have some questions. And like, look, David, there's no pressure from my end. The last thing I want to do is put you in a position where, it's just uncomfortable. If you decide to move on without Kathy, you're sleeping on the couch, you're hot pocketing, you're driving a quick trip to get a sandwich every now and then, right? Like you're excommunicado. I don't want to do that to you. So let's get Kathy on the call.
Mm-hmm.
Sound fair? They go, yeah. Does that make sense? So listen, like humor is my best friend, even in uncomfortable situations. I use this as an icebreaker, right? But if somebody's actually very more emotional or whatever driven, say, I totally understand it. You could say, look, I don't want to put you in a position where things, but what if Kathy says it's not the best decision to move forward? Like, is Kathy aware of the business and kind of the situation that you're in, that you shared with me, that bills aren't getting paid, you're struggling for business? Like, is Kathy aware of all that stuff? It's a personal question, but is she? And he goes, no, dude, I haven't told her shit. Do you get what I'm saying? Now it's all EQ. So now I got to slow play it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And wait, say that again. So after, if they say she's not aware, then you have to do what?
You got to slow play it. So it's like, I can't pressure him. Like he already feels the pressure, right? Like Kathy isn't caught up to speed with the business. He doesn't know that it's struggling a little bit, this and that, and say, well, look, it sounds to me like, Kathy aside, like this is really something that you think would really help you with the business. Like it take you from struggling to actually being able to build some momentum and generate revenue. And they go, yeah, 100%. Say, well, look, David, if it would help, let's definitely have that conversation. I'll speak to Kathy directly. You can be on the call. And I just want to make sure that, she's good to go. So let's do that. Is she going to be available at 5 p.m. today? So move same day.
Got it. Okay, perfect. And then the other ones, if they say it's too expensive, help them see the value. You've already vetted that they can technically afford it. make sure they see the value. If they say, give me time to think about it, then say, I'm your best source of, you know, you're not going to learn. The reason we want more time is because we think we'll get more information. I'm your best source of information. So why don't you ask the question?
You could do that, and understand that some of these things too, give me time to think about it. And the reasons why they're saying give me time to think about it is they need to talk to the wife. So they're not like, it's not a zero-sum game. Give me time to think about it can also mean it's too expensive and they need to check out other agencies. So it could be like 4 or 5 of these things at one time. So what you have to do is isolate, even if they go, well, it's too expensive, I really need time to think about it, and I really need to talk to my wife. You ever run into that, David? Where it's a threefer?
The combo, yeah, definitely. Then you have.
And then what's your workaround? How do you manage that?
I'll take on one at a time. So
yep. So you acknowledge and then isolate. Yeah, I hear you, 100%. And when you said, you know, like price aside, and you know, I get it. You need to talk to your wife. When you say I need time to think about it, what is, you know, break that down for me. Then you handle that, and then you go back to wife, and then you go back to it being too expensive.
And then
so you have to isolate them.
2 last questions, and I'll let you go if you have time for these last 2. One, the hardest objection I've found to overcome is I need to check out other agencies to see which would be the best fit for me. That one's hard to overcome because they're generally pretty set on it. They probably have other calls set up, and they, you know, they will feel like, why can't I just come back and if your offer is the best fit for me and come talk with you? But you don't want to let them go, because then obviously the odds of closing them go way down. That one's a really hard objection.
Okay, so I need to check out other agencies and which is best for me. That's how they phrase it to you? Is that the verbiage?
It's generally like, I'm looking into, they kind of frame it as, I'm doing multiple calls to see who has the best price and who can get me the best results. And I don't want to buy on call today. I want to get a feel for the sort of industry, I guess, is kind of how they'll phrase it.
Yes, and David, you should be doing your due diligence. After all, it is an investment, right? Yep. And it's a pretty penny too, right? It goes, yeah. Say, when you say the best, which is the best? Can you define best for me? Like, what would that include? The best offer or the best option would include what?
And let's say they say lowest price for highest results.
Okay. And say, all right, so look, what we tend to look at is it the lowest price? So you're saying the highest value at the least amount of money. That's almost like if I came to you, because you're a landscaper, and I say, I want you to do the job as quick as possible, charge me the least, and I want you to include as much as possible. I don't think there's any business that has that particular package. However, this is what I will tell you. You're going to find people that'll do business cheaper than me. There's going to be people that maybe provide a little bit more value. I haven't found them, but by all means, you can look. But there's nobody that's going to provide as much value as me for less. So with that being said, I think you'd agree with me. Best would mean this, and then you go through your value stack. Okay. Something that's obviously getting you some of your time back because they're calling the leads, correct? Is that a value or not?
Yes.
Yes or no? Okay, perfect. We're going to keep that on. Okay. The other thing is somebody that's going to optimize the ads, meaning that you're not going to have to decode the Facebook mayhem, right?
Yes.
So you want an experienced media buyer that can handle that, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, I think you'd also agree with me, somebody that communicates, right? Yeah. With you, that checks in because your boots on the ground, right?
Obviously.
Maybe somebody that can help you because, you know, referrals are a different conversation. I think you'd agree with me than somebody coming in from a cold ad, right? So maybe somebody that can give you some scripting, which I include. Do you see what I'm doing?
Yeah, you're making them see, you're making them
that I'm the best.
Every single thing you offer is something they need. And also, I doubt, I mean, obviously when they're getting on calls with other agencies, that's the one nice thing about a saturated market is agencies are so easy to start that a lot of your competition is going to be lower quality. And well, easy to start. It doesn't require a lot of investment. That's great. So
Yeah, and last thing too is with landscapers, you might even say like, look, hey, David, this is a very transparent question. You ever worked on any projects where you were the second person to come in because they chose the cheapest first, and now there's a lot of things you got to clean up?
nice. And then they're gonna be like, yeah. And then you're like,
All the time, and be like, and then when you come in and have to clean it up, do you typically charge more or less?
more.
Right. So I don't want that to be the situation. So what do I have to do on my end to make it make sense for you? No brainer of an offer for us to do business today. What does that look like?
And then they'll go through that and perfect. And I think this will take like 30 seconds, but I know some beginner agency owners, their biggest issue is confidence and being able to deliver. So they don't want to oversell themselves. Well, you have any advice for people that have that issue? And then we can call it.
Overselling themselves?
Like they're worried that they're going to get the client and then they're not going to be able to deliver results, essentially.
You know, but it's almost like me, David. I could sit back and I could spend all the time worrying about what if I have a heart attack. But what happens is it doesn't help me move forward from today. Right? So it kind of just crushes me mentally, right? So now I'm suffering from paralysis about something that I can't even control. But they have to understand that when you're running ads, you do have control. There's several things that you can do, but in order to improve upon that skill set, you need ad spending, you need clients to improve upon that portion of it, right? So it's like, it's pillar 4 for a reason, fulfillment. Yeah. Right? You'll figure that out when you get to it. But in terms of over delivering, like you can't say, I'll get you 50 appointments within 2 weeks. They have to be realistic.
Mm-hmm. And I've actually seen agency owners pitch themselves, pitch a slightly less like perfect offer, but pitch it as I'm not going to overpromise and underdeliver, because I think a lot of agencies try and just outdo each other. Like, I'll do it, $1,000 per month, a retainer, $1,000 ad spend, I'll get you 50 new jobs that are $1,000 or more. And then like, they're not even going to believe that's possible. So you can almost pitch yourself as being, I'm the honest guy that you can work with honestly, and I'll give you actual results, but I'm not going to overpromise and underdeliver. And that can almost be an asset. So,
yeah. So, I mean, the way you can phrase this, like, look, David, what I do specifically is to get you maximum results, but it takes maximum effort to do so. So I just want to be clear, like whatever, my guarantee is 20 within 30 days. I just want to be clear, David. I don't pump the brakes at 20. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's
like, I'm not
of 30.
Yeah, I'm not pumping the brakes at 20 or 30, brother. Like I'm trying to take this to the moon, right? But it really starts with commitment from you agreeing that we're going to work together. Because at the end of the day, somebody could tell you, I can get you 200 appointments. It doesn't mean they have 200 people in tow waiting. Mm-hmm. It's based off the campaigns and their experience. And I'm gonna tell it to you straight. I like my odds and I like my chances. And I didn't come up with this guarantee to figure out how can I give you the most amount of leads, because that's off the table anyways, because that's my job. I'm going to get you as many leads as possible, Mm-hmm. What I am saying though, is that there comes a time where does it really make sense? Like, how many jobs can you do as a landscaper, David? Per day?
I could do about, my team could take on about 1 hardscaping job a week and 10 mowing jobs a week.
Okay, so, but do you go in and do you have the mindset that you can take on 40 mowing jobs per week?
No.
3 hardscapers, right? So I don't do that business either.
Got it.
Realistic expectations and exemplary results. That's my business model. And listen, I'm a service-focused agency. I'm service-focused, right?
Mhm.
And it just so happens because I am surface focused that results follow. So with that being said, where do you want to go from here?
And then they're gonna buy. Joe,
Money.
there's a reason you're the known as the sales guy. You're so good. Everything is gold. This was awesome.
Okay. All right, David.
I appreciate it, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. And thanks for
Yeah, you too. Yep. See you.
See you, Joe.
Cheers.
Joe's goated. Do sales. You'll get those racks.